As individual countries, we are very weak. And we can only be strong if we unite. And our unity must be unity of purpose.
Burkina Faso has just dropped a bomb on the global financial system. Ibrahim Traoré has launched a new African currency, Afro Money, backed by gold, cobalt, and oil, and completely cut off from Western control. No one saw it coming. Everyone's asking the same thing. Why would a leader risk everything to launch a currency right now? Let's find out. When Africa waved its political flags of independence, most believed the battle was over. The colonial rulers were gone. The national anthems changed. But beneath the surface, one chain remained untouched: monetary control. And that chain wasn't just lingering, it was tightening. In 2025, Africa doesn't need tanks on its soil to be subdued. It only needs the wrong kind of money in its pockets. The money that France can't control. That's what Ibrahim Traoré understood better than most. While politicians pursue development loans and attend IMF lectures, their currencies are being used silently as a weapon against them. And the most glaring example of that is the CFA franc. The CFA isn't just a currency, it's a foreign instrument disguised as a national tool. Born from the ashes of French colonialism, it still binds 14 African nations to a monetary system controlled by the French treasury. Even today, those countries cannot print money without approval. They cannot move their reserves freely. They're forced to keep a significant chunk of their foreign currency in French banks, interest-free. What does that mean in practice? It means African countries remain independent only on paper. When global markets crash, they can't protect their economies. When inflation hits, they can't stimulate growth. Their financial decisions, the lifeblood of any nation, are made in another country's capital. So why launch a new currency now? Because for the first time in decades, the geopolitical structure that enforced this setup is cracking. France is losing its grip in West Africa. ECOWAS is splintering. Military-led transitions in Mali, Niger, Guinea, and now Burkina Faso are breaking with old alliances. It's not just rebellion, it's replacement. And Traoré understands that no revolution is real if your economy still uses your oppressor's pen. Launching Afro Money wasn't a gamble, it was a necessity. The current global system punishes independence and rewards dependence. Countries that try to de-dollarize, avoid Eurobond traps, or exit the CFA are instantly met with currency downgrades, sanctions, or trade freezes. So rather than patch a broken system, Traoré chose to build something new from the ground up, something that no foreign hand could freeze, delay, or devalue. And he's not alone. Whispers of monetary independence are echoing across Africa. Leaders are watching. Movements are growing. The youth, disillusioned with old structures, are ready to rally behind something that feels like ownership, not obligation. But a new currency is just a first strike. To be more than a protest, it must send a message. One so powerful that it lives in people's minds every time they see it. So the question becomes, what exactly does Afro Money look like? And why are its visual details shaking governments as much as its value? You can tell a government's priorities by what it prints on its money. In the United States, the dollar is covered in past presidents, founding fathers, and symbols of Enlightenment-era liberty. In the European Union, the euro notes show bridges and gates, metaphors for unity and expansion. But Afro Money does something altogether different. It doesn't try to appease history, it corrects it. Take a single Afro Money note in your hand, and you're not just holding a currency, you're holding a manifesto. The imagery isn't neutral, it's loaded. Traoré didn't choose bland monuments or abstract art. He chose revolutionaries who were killed, exiled, or demonized by the very powers Afro Money is designed to confront. Thomas Sankara, assassinated after challenging Western debt systems. Patrice Lumumba, overthrown and executed with foreign complicity. Queen Nzinga, who waged a decades-long resistance against Portuguese colonization. Nelson Mandela, once labeled an insurgent by allies of the same nations that now celebrate him. These figures weren't selected for nostalgia. They were chosen to psychologically rewire how Africans see power, not as something that comes from outside approval, but from internal defiance. It's not just who's on the money, it's how they're depicted. Sankara doesn't smile. His expression is steely, almost confrontational. Lumumba's eyes burn with restrained fury. Queen Nzinga isn't in the background. She sits at the center, spear in hand. Mandela's portrait is not the gentle elder but the sharp younger fighter from the anti-apartheid underground. Even the typography is defiant. The words Afro Money aren't tucked into a corner. They dominate the center. On some notes, they're accompanied by inscriptions in multiple African languages, not colonial tongues, a quiet but powerful rejection of linguistic imperialism. And then there are the coins. These aren't pocket change, they're micro-monuments. Etched into them are maps of Africa without colonial borders, fists breaking chains, baobab trees wrapped around circuit diagrams, a direct reference to techno-sovereignty and Africa's emerging digital power. Every coin has a unique inscription on the rim, lines from African poems, anti-colonial speeches, or proverbs once erased by European textbooks. The panic among global elites isn't just about economics. It's about narrative control. Currency design is a daily education tool. It teaches people who to remember, who to admire, and who to fear. Western-backed currencies in Africa have always carried Western value systems by default. Afro money replaces that with unapologetic African pride. More importantly, this design puts pressure on African leaders themselves. You can't publicly praise Sankara while simultaneously signing military deals with the countries that helped remove him. You can't pose with Lumumba's image on a banknote while attending IMF dinners in Brussels. Afro money isn't just a currency, it's a mirror. And for many, it's uncomfortable. The fear is not that this currency will fail. The fear is that people will believe in it. Because belief is contagious. And belief, once embedded in something tangible, becomes very hard to kill. But belief alone isn't enough. If Afro money is to become more than a symbol, it has to be untouchable, protected from sabotage, hacking, or seizure. So the next question is, how has Traoré armored Afro money against foreign interference? And what makes its foundation harder to break than any African currency before it? Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. If the imagery on Afro money challenges Africa's psychological dependency, its infrastructure challenges the physical one. Printing revolutionary faces is one thing. Keeping those faces from being erased is another. History is full of African monetary experiments crushed not by bad economics, but by targeted attacks from the very powers they threatened. Traoré has studied those failures. From the moment Afro money was conceived, the question wasn't, how do we make it? But how do we keep it alive when the first cyber attack hits? And make no mistake, the first attack will come. Whether it's currency manipulation, digital theft, or sudden restrictions in international payment systems like SWIFT, the West has a long playbook for neutralizing financial independence. Afro money is designed to tear pages out of that playbook before they can be used. The most important safeguard is its blockchain core. While the physical notes and coins will circulate for accessibility, the backbone of Afro money exists in a decentralized digital ledger stored across multiple African nations. That means no single server can be seized or shut down. No foreign central bank can freeze the currency. Every transaction can be verified in real time without going through a foreign clearinghouse. This system is modeled not on Western cryptocurrencies driven by speculation, but on security-first digital sovereignty. The blockchain infrastructure is air-gapped from Western oversight, hosted in African-controlled data centers, many of them powered by renewable energy to reduce dependency on imported fuel. But technology alone can't protect a currency from sabotage. Traoré's team went further. They rethought the trade routes. Afro money will first be adopted for intra-African transactions in sectors where Africa has the leverage. Gold exports from Burkina Faso, cobalt from Congo, oil from Nigeria, and uranium from Niger. These commodities are so strategically critical that buyers can't easily boycott without hurting themselves. In other words, Traoré is using Africa's most in-demand resources as a shield. There's also a parallel payment network being quietly built. Similar to how Russia developed its SPFS and China its CIPS after Western sanctions, This African payment channel will operate independently from SWIFT. If the West tries to disconnect Afro Money users from the global system, they can still trade among themselves and with partners like China, Russia, and Turkey without interruption. Another safeguard is the multi-resource reserve model. Unlike traditional currencies pegged to one commodity like gold or a single foreign currency, Afro Money's value is anchored to a basket of African resources. This makes it far more resistant to manipulation. Driving down gold prices might hurt, but it won't destroy Afro Money because cobalt, oil, and other reserves still hold value. It's an insurance policy built into the currency's DNA. Finally, Afro Money's architecture anticipates human sabotage, the kind that comes from within. African financial elites who profit from foreign dependency can derail a project faster than any Western bank. To counter this, Traoré is introducing tiered adoption, starting with allied nations under military or reformist governments, then expanding to the wider continent once the system has proven stable. This limits the ability of hostile insiders to sabotage the launch phase. What emerges is not a fragile ideal, but a fortress currency, one designed to survive political storms, economic sieges, and technological assaults. But survival is only one part of the story. For Afro Money to fulfill its mission, it has to live in a wider ecosystem, one where African goods, people, and wealth can move without being stopped by a border guard or a conversion fee. Which raises the next question. How does Afro Money fit into Traoré's bigger blueprint for a borderless, economically united Africa? That's where the true scale of the plan comes into view. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. A strong currency can survive attacks, a strong economy can outlast sanctions, but a fragmented continent will always be vulnerable. Traoré understands that Afro Money, no matter how secure, would fail if trapped inside the current African trade reality. Today, goods moving from one African country to another still face multiple borders, customs delays, and a maze of tariffs that drain time and profit. Moving a truckload of grain from Burkina Faso to Ghana can involve more paperwork than shipping the same load from Africa to Europe. This is not by accident. It's the lingering architecture of colonial-era trade systems designed to move African resources outward, not inward. So Afro Money is not the end game. It's the keystone in a much larger structure, an integrated Africa where money, goods, and people move as freely as they do within the European Union. At the heart of this vision is the African Continental Free Trade Area (AfCFTA). Signed by almost every African nation, the agreement aims to create a single market by removing tariffs on 90% of goods and streamlining customs procedures. The potential is enormous, but one obstacle has crippled it: currency fragmentation. With over 40 different national currencies in circulation, traders lose money and time converting payments, often using the US dollar or euro as intermediaries. Afro Money eliminates that problem overnight. Imagine a cocoa farmer in the Ivory Coast selling beans directly to a chocolatier in Kenya. Today, that deal might require converting CFA francs to dollars, then to Kenyan shillings, paying fees at each step. With Afro Money, it's one transaction, one currency, no foreign bank in between. The economic efficiency is obvious. But there's a deeper effect. A shared currency becomes a shared identity. Traoré's team is pairing Afro Money with two other liberation tools: a single African passport and continental transport corridors. The passport will allow any African citizen to live, work, and travel anywhere on the continent without visas, a direct strike against the colonial borders carved in 1884 at the Berlin Conference. The transport corridors, high-speed rail lines, upgraded highways, and cross-border energy grids will physically connect markets currently isolated from one another. These three tools work in sequence. Transport corridors unlock physical access. The passport unlocks human mobility. Afro Money unlocks financial fluidity. None can work in isolation. Without the secure movement of people and goods, Afro Money would be a fortress with no gates. Without Afro Money, free movement would still depend on foreign-controlled payment systems. Together, they create something Africa has never had in modern history: economic sovereignty on a continental scale. The potential ripple effects are staggering. A unified African market of 1.4 billion people using one currency would be the largest common currency zone in the world by population. It would rival the European Union in economic scale and surpass it in resource wealth. That kind of power shifts negotiations with foreign partners. Africa would no longer bargain as dozens of small economies. It would bargain as one. But this unity will not come without enemies. A borderless Africa with its currency and passport threatens not just foreign powers, but internal elites whose influence depends on keeping their nations isolated and dependent. These actors, both inside and outside Africa, will not sit quietly while such a system takes root. Which brings us to the final question. If Afro Money and Traoré's wider plan are so transformative, who stands to lose the most, and how far will they go to stop it? That's where the fight turns dangerous. Every currency tells a story, but Afro Money tells one that many would rather never be heard. For foreign powers, it is not just a threat to their trade balances, it is a threat to their control. For certain African elites, it is a threat to their position. And for global markets, it is a threat to a very old habit, treating Africa as a supplier, not a competitor. The first to feel the pain would be France. Afro Money's rise means a direct erosion of the CFA francs' reach, and with it, France's ability to influence the economies of West and Central Africa. For decades, Paris has enjoyed the quiet privilege of holding African reserves in its treasury, collecting interest, and dictating monetary policy without sending a single soldier. If Afro Money gains traction, that stream of influence and revenue collapses. The loss is not only economic but symbolic. It would mark the end of France's monetary empire in Africa. The second loser would be Western financial institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Their leverage often depends on African nations needing bailout loans denominated in foreign currencies. A continent trading primarily in Afro Money, backed by its resources, would reduce that dependency. Without the hook of debt, these institutions lose the ability to attach conditions to their assistance, conditions that have historically included privatizing public assets, opening markets to foreign corporations, and cutting social spending. Then there are multinational corporations, especially those embedded in resource extraction. Many of them benefit from currency volatility in African markets, buying commodities cheaply during devaluations and selling products at inflated exchange rates. A stable, resource-backed Afro Money undermines that game. It would force these companies to pay fairer prices and compete on terms set in Africa, not abroad. But perhaps the most dangerous opposition will come from inside Africa itself. There are leaders, bankers, and ministers whose fortunes and political survival depend on foreign ties. They have built careers on negotiating aid packages, signing currency agreements, and facilitating deals that keep their nations plugged into the old system. Afro Money removes its relevance. For them, its success would mean losing both income and influence. History offers a grim warning. Leaders who attempted similar structural shifts, from Lumumba to Sankara to Gaddafi, were not merely opposed, they were eliminated. The tools ranged from covert destabilization and propaganda campaigns to outright military intervention. In the modern era, the methods have become more subtle. Cyber attacks on payment systems, coordinated capital flight to spark artificial crises, disinformation campaigns to undermine public trust, and the cultivation of political factions willing to reverse reforms once in power. Traoré appears to be aware of these risks. His strategy of rolling out Afro Money within a core group of allied nations first is as much about building resilience as it is about logistics. The more countries that adopt and protect the system early, the harder it becomes to dismantle without a major geopolitical confrontation. This is why support from Mali, Niger, Guinea, and Chad is more than symbolic. It forms a defensive bloc. Still, the reality is harsh. No revolutionary currency has ever been launched without blood being spilled somewhere along the way. Afro Money's survival will depend on whether Africans, both leaders and citizens, are willing to defend it not just in speeches, but in practice. That means resisting economic blackmail, refusing political bribes, and standing firm in the face of crises engineered to break confidence in the system. And here lies the paradox. The very forces trying to destroy Afro Money prove why it's necessary. The harder they push back, the clearer it becomes that Africa's economic sovereignty has always been a threat to someone else's profit. So the question is no longer whether Afro money can work. The question is whether Africa is ready to protect it at any cost, because this time, the war for the continent's future isn't being fought on battlefields. It's being fought in the wallets of 1.4 billion people. Who controls the money in Africa's pockets? Can a nation be free if its currency isn't? Let us know in the comment section what happens when your wallet answers to another country. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Deposit Photos Music.